This panel, for what it's worth, is sponsored by the Cybersecurity Canon project. You can see that logo in the lower corner of my image. The Cybersecurity Canon project is an all-volunteer effort. We've been around for probably 9 years. We read cybersecurity books, and then we write up cybersecurity book reviews for the community. We've got close to 100 reviews that have been authored by dozens of people over the years. We are sponsored by the Ohio State University, generously sponsored by them. I did drop a link to the Cybersecurity Canon at the very top of our hallway channel, so I would encourage you to check that out. There are 2 tiers of books that live inside the Cybersecurity Canon. There are books that we say are quote unquote in the canon. If you had a positive review of the book, it is automatically listed in the canon. There's also kind of the next step up, which is the Hall of Fame. And we've structured this kind of like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, where we're looking for very specific, individual, concrete things about a specific book. In the case of the Cybersecurity Hall of Fame, you have to have a must-read book for all cybersecurity practitioners, whether they are from industry, government, or academia, where the content is timeless. It generally represents an aspect of the community that is true and precise. It reflects the highest quality, and if not read, it will leave a hole in the cybersecurity professional's education that will make that practitioner incomplete. So it's a very high bar to get into that second tier, but all of the books that we have in the canon, whether they are in the canon or elected into the Hall of Fame, are first tier books. Most of those books we characterize as niche books. They might not kind of measure up to that bar. It's not going to be universally applicable. One of my reviews from last year was around the role of the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer. It's a very strong book, but that one role is one of dozens of roles in the universe. So it is by definition a niche book. Finally, if you are also a secret writer and hopefully a secret reader as well, if you would like to submit your own book review, head over to that Cybersecurity Canon link. We do have a process. You don't have to be a member of the Cybersecurity Canon project to author reviews. We gratefully take a look at reviews coming in from outside of the organization. If you go to RSA conference this year, if you're going to San Francisco, you will find us standing outside the bookstore for the 4 days. We're also going to be leading 2 of the Birds of a Feather sessions. So I'm going to climb off my soapbox now so that we can kind of get to the meat of this session. Please do drop any questions that you might have directly into the dedicated Slack hallway channel. That's panel taking the plunge, that channel. Jenny has already put in a first question, and we're definitely going to start with her after we get through the introductions. And with that, let me ask each of our panelists, and Renee, I think I'm going to start with you, to take a few minutes to introduce yourself, how you got into the cyberspace, and how your book on cybersecurity careers came into being.
Thank you so much, Ben. I am Renee Small, cybersecurity super recruiter, and I help awesome leaders hire great talent. The books that I have written are focused on cybersecurity careers. The initial one, Magnetic Hiring, was really focused on teaching recruiters how to recruit cybersecurity talent. Because when I first came into the industry, I struggled. I had no idea what any of the technology meant, what any of the roles meant. So I was like a fish out of water. Although I had years and years of technology experience, when it came to cybersecurity, it was like a whole different language. So I jotted down my struggles, and after, overcoming and becoming the super recruiter that I am today, that I didn't start out as, I documented that and shared it. And my goal was for it to be a book for other recruiters that were, struggling the way I was struggling. But come to find out, the cybersecurity professionals ended up taking it, enjoying it, and that's how that first book got started. I'll take a pause. Should I just jump into the second one?
Yeah, go ahead.
And then the second one was really focused on what we do in the Breaking Into Cybersecurity podcast series. So really focused on helping folks who are looking to break in or looking to transition into the field, because we had spoken to so many people who had done it over the years. We collectively took our experiences and put that into the How to Break Into Cybersecurity pretty much career book. So that's where the two books came from.
That is excellent. Thank you for that introduction, Renee. And it's great that you're here, not necessarily as a hands-on technical person, you're approaching it from this recruiting angle, which I think would be very interesting to everybody who's listening in. So we'll come back to you. Absolutely, Renee. Jax, how about we turn it over to you? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your book.
Awesome. I would love to. Ben, first off, thank you so much for putting this together. I'm super excited to be here, and thank you, Sands, for this amazing opportunity. So a little about myself, I'm Jax Scott. I am the founder of Outpost Gray, and I started my career in IT actually in 2008. I took the military approach. And at that time, I was doing mostly architectural design. And I know that sounds pretty fancy, but in the military, it was really going out in the middle of nowhere and setting up network infrastructures. So at that time, I was doing that. And on the side, my full-time job was help desk. And I honestly hated my life and I wanted to get out of IT. But lo and behold, through my career in the military, it transitioned me into a place where I started working as a warrant officer in cybersecurity. And that's just a long story, really, really short, where I started having more of a passion for understanding cyber threat intel. And I started kind of diving into that area. And then it was 2019, actually, when I deployed to Eastern Europe to support Atlantic Resolve. And it was during that time that I started to realize there was so much more to cybersecurity. And I started seeing the public and private partnership issues that we have in America. And then from there, it really moved me into the space that I'm in today, which is the governance, risk, and compliance space. However, just like Renee, when I got into cybersecurity, I was really confused because there's so much information. I know individuals that are listening to this are probably nodding their head. There's a lot of information out there, more than there was 15 years ago. And it can be really overwhelming. So what myself and my co-authors decided to do is we decided to create a book called the Cybersecurity Career Master Plan. And the idea behind the book was to create a one-stop shop, a book for you to be able to understand, A, what is cybersecurity and do I want to be in this field? And if that is a yes, then we would teach you, okay, here are some of the career paths, here are some of the certifications, some of the things that you can do in your journey in cybersecurity. And then the book finalizes out by providing you goal setting and a framework and understanding what's really important in this industry is networking and understanding how to put all of that together. So my passion really is in helping educate this community. And that's why with Outpost Gray, I run a YouTube as well. And it's all about providing more education in this space. So
that's awesome. Thank you, Jax. And for what it's worth, my entry point into the technology/security world was also through a help desk job just a few years ago. It's a great kind of foundation to kind of get you up on the technology side. So thank you for that summary. Much appreciated. Christina, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your book.
Well, hi, Ben. Nice to see you.
Yes, ma'am.
I feel like you know more about the book than anybody else. Well, next to Jennifer. But I am Christina Marillo, also known online as Divine Techie Girl. I am based out of New York City. I've been in the information security because I don't like to use the term cybersecurity, but that's another story for another day. I've been in the information security and technology kind of ecosystem or stratosphere for the past 25 years. Like Jax, I also started my career in IT specifically and focused on like network administration and, pulling patch cables and all the technical, getting your hands dirty, little bit of programming as well. But I kind of loved that path. And I also started on the help desk, non-military though, no experience with the military. And so I kind of navigated. And to be honest, I entered the IT security space at the time. That's what this was called by accident. So I didn't strategically end up here. But I have strategically tried to push my path forward within the space. And so when I joined, it was actually called IT security. So not as fancy, I guess. And I joined working on the identity, like focused on identity engineering, identity and access management. And then I kind of navigated around and did some security engineering. I ended up at Microsoft as a security program manager for a while, working on their identity and specifically like Azure Active Directory security product, or identity product. And just, I'm like a lifelong learner, so I love to absorb as much information as possible. And that's kind of like how I pushed myself forward. And so that's me. The book came about because O'Reilly actually reached out to me about a year and a half ago and brought me this kind of concept for a consolidated collaborative book. That's all they said. And I had to kind of figure out what are we going to do here? Thankfully, they already kind of had a framework. So my job was to find folks in the industry, you know, whether they were newcomers, whether they were entry level, whether they were experienced, whether they had 25 years in the game like I did, and pretty much consolidate all of our knowledge into, you know, tactical and technical material. And, you know, whether it was hard skills or soft skills, we wanted to kind of consolidate this material into one book, right? So we call it 97 things because there are 97 things or lessons, you know, lessons that you should know about, that you should learn, 97 tidbits. There weren't 97 people, actually. Folks like Ben wrote more than one chapter. So we had about 75 information security professionals. And my idea was, again, to really expose newbies with more experience with newbies, and also give a voice and space to everyone that whoever wanted some space and to share their voice with the world, right? And I think it turned out well. It turned out better than I expected. A lot of folks, you know, said it was herding cats, but it really wasn't. Everybody was a pleasure to work with, including you, Ben. And it was really fun, and, you know, really happy with the turnout. So, yeah.
Well, you're very kind, Christina. It was a Herculean effort, if I can use that word. It was herding cats or herding mice or whatever the right analogy is. I do want to emphasize, Christina, correct me if I'm wrong, out of those 97 topics, those were not necessarily 97 purely technical topic areas, right?
No, there's a nice mix. I wanted to kind of keep it with, you know, hard skills and soft skills. So we did want some, you know, kind of technical expertise within the book, but we also wanted to highlight the emphasis on, you know, certifications, and also on experience, networking, and other skills, you know, just to make a better rounded security professional, right? Because I think we need a little bit of everything. It's not just one thing. So, yeah.
So this is, I think I'm hearing you say that being a good information security professional is more about just knowing the technology, right?
It's way more than that.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Thanks, guys. That's great introductions. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the clock. We are doing great on time at this point. I'm looking into the Slack channel, everybody, and we've already got a couple of questions. So I'm going to go right to those questions to get started. Jenny posted this 7 minutes before we started. She was excited. She had to get this question in. Any advice on languages to learn or certifications that are quote unquote must-haves for those of us changing careers and starting from zero knowledge? Jenny, I will quickly just broaden that to maybe ask the question again. Information security is commonly viewed as a technical realm, and there is a lot of technology, but there are experiences that you can have and jobs that you can have that might not require you to be a hands-on technology person from the get-go. So I'll kind of broaden that. Maybe Renee, we can swing it back to you and see if you've got anything, especially from your recruiter perspective, around Jenny's question.
Absolutely. So this is a question we get probably every single week on our podcast. And we tell folks, and I always speak from my personal perspective. So when I hear what managers usually say to me, well, it's split in two. If you are looking for a role in a government, either government contractor, you usually do need a certification. Security Plus is typically the one that is a baseline enough when you're, you know, relatively entry level, from my experience, for you to be able to be eligible for a lot of the roles. That is purely government contracting from my perspective, what I've seen in the market over the past couple of years. From a commercial perspective, so all of the big Fortune 1000, all the companies, small businesses, Fortune, 100, Fortune 500, from my experience, you do not need any certifications. They look for, the leaders typically look for a level of experience. And when I say experience, especially when entry and when transitioning, mostly what are you doing during your free time to learn about various either technologies or whatever it is, whatever role that you're going for, what little bit of experience do you have in that space? And that usually goes much further than just having a baseline certification. So I'll couch it there.
That is a great answer. Thank you, Renee. Let me ask Jax or Christina if you might have anything to add to that question.
Yeah, I can jump in on that one. I think Renee, you did a great job at covering like the federal side and the corporate sector. Something I would just like to highlight for, because her question was specifically about transitioning with a zero knowledge. So my first thing is, I'm not huge on certifications. However, I've had a lot of hands-on experience throughout my life. So if I was starting out with zero, I might have a different lens. So I just want to preface with that. But what I would do in this situation is I would go out there and learn what is cybersecurity. I would try to get as much free resources as you can before purchasing anything. And I would understand the industry. Then I would start networking and working with contacting and talking with other individuals that are in this space to understand, what does your role look like? What does your day-to-day look like? And then that will help you build your knowledge base. It will also help you identify, where do you want to be? Because if you go out there and you start getting some of these certifications, I know that I've had friends that have done it and they've felt extremely overwhelmed when that was the first thing that they did. So just keep that in mind, Jenny. If you're looking to get into the space, I would say go out there, start educating yourself on what is cybersecurity 101. What does it mean to be a cybersecurity professional? What are the different career fields that are available? Once you find something that really kind of maybe fits your need of thinking of like, that's something I might want to do. Maybe it's GRC, maybe it's cyber threat intel, maybe it's being a hacker. Then reach out to somebody on LinkedIn that you know that does that line of work, and then just ask them some questions around what they do on their day-to-day. And I think starting there will really help you really define, what do I want to do? And then at that point, you can go further, maybe with some certifications.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be somebody you know on LinkedIn. It could be somebody you don't know on LinkedIn. Maybe it's somebody you've seen post. You mentioned GRC, governance, risk, and compliance. That's kind of a risk management focus area that's definitely within the umbrella. I really like the recommendation, Jax. You need to do a little extra lifting to figure out what type of role you think you would want versus just saying, I want to get into cybersecurity. Where do I start? Because there's so many different roles. Christina, I don't want to leave you behind in case you might have any thoughts to add here.
No, I mean, I think Renee and Jax covered it perfectly. I really want to echo what Jax said. I think the most important step is to figure out which area or which path you want to take within security, because there's so many different paths that require, that each require specific skill sets, specific experience, understanding. So that can really get overwhelming. I mean, I would say as a first step, talk to a couple of us, network with folks in the conference and see what jobs folks are doing today. I wouldn't just jump into a certification, but what I will say is, just echoing Renee's point, the Security Plus is a great, I don't even worry about taking the certification. I would say pick up the book and maybe review the terms, technologies. Just understanding the lingo will take you a long way, because now you're starting to kind of train your brain, right, and develop that muscle memory. It's really important to understand, like, what are we talking about every day, right? And why is this a big deal? And why businesses should care about it. So even coming from that understanding is super important. If you're super adamant about learning something, I would say to look into, if you're not already a developer, if you don't know how to code, look into it. You don't have to like jump in head first. It's a great skill. Like if you look, I think someone mentioned Python in the chat. That's a great first language. Just be curious. Don't put any pressure on yourself. just look around and see if it interests you, if it piques your interest, if it makes you feel good. But a lot of times, and I don't like to give generic advice because it really depends on the person. A lot of times what I do is that I really sit down and have a conversation with the individual to see where their current skills align, where they can transition seamlessly, because let's be honest, like, I don't want to take a pay cut, right? Even if I want to transition to another industry or another field or sector within security, I don't want to take a pay cut. And I'm sure you don't either. So, I discuss those things. And then I also discuss just interests, like, what are you interested in, right? Do you want to be, do you want to work in a SOC, right? Do you want to answer tickets all day? Like, it really depends. So just echoing what everyone said, as far as understanding which area you like first is like super important before you jump into like any certifications or any skill development.
And one inexpensive way to kind of start on that path, Christina, what you said was that Security Plus, just get the book. Make that investment, read it. I can tell you, as somebody who has hired lots of people into this industry, if you don't have a certification, that's not the end of the world. If you're new to the industry and you can talk about, hey, I just read this book, or I'm considering doing that, you're going to get extra bonus points from the
Right.
interviewer, because that demonstrates you've already got a passion for the space and for the work.
Exactly. Yeah.
Todd and Chase, kind of two additional questions, almost the same question. Todd's asking, is 90 days out before transitioning from education to cybersecurity too far to start applying? And then Chase asks, at what point should we jump into searching for a career? For instance, I work full time and I'm also about my second year into his bachelor's in computer science. Again, I'll take a quick swing at that. As a hiring manager in the past, there's no time like the present. Many organizations will have things like internships. Some are paid, some are not paid. Both will give you great experience. A lot of those internship programs tend to be targeting, let's call it traditional education students. They might only be available in the summer timeframe, for example. That's one way to get started. But 90 days out, Todd, I don't think at all is too early. But let's see if any of our three authors have anything else on that.
I can jump in on that one.
Yeah.
I think you touched it well, Ben, too, because both of these questions are similar, but a little bit different. So for Chase, for example, I think the approach for you, Chase, is looking at this by an internship. You're still in college, you're pursuing your degree. This is a great opportunity to get connected with organizations that you would really like to work with after you've gotten your degree. And a lot of organizations are open to doing internships more than maybe bringing somebody on full time. And that'll get your foot in the door, give you hands-on experience. So I think start now researching that and finding those internships or even part-time jobs. And then for Todd, I was actually just in Slack getting ready to respond to you, but I always say it's never too late. Ben, you said it. There's no better time than the present. The biggest advice that I would give you, Todd, is just make sure that you communicate with the hiring manager, whoever you're working with, on your realistic timeline. Just have respect for them. They'll have respect for you if you tell them, I'm looking for a position, but I'm not going to be able to actually be onboarded for 90 days. People will wait for you because talent is sparse in this area. So just make sure that you communicate that.
Yeah, great advice. And one more quick word on internships. A lot of people walk into the internships with the expectation that you are going to enjoy it, right? And that's kind of the hope. We don't want to waste time, but it is super equally important to come out of an internship to say, you know what, that was awful. I don't want to do that. And you want to figure that out before you turn that into a full-time job. The more internships, the more swings of the bat, to use a sporting analogy, the better prepared you're going to be. Christina or Renee, anything to add on that point?
I think that it's also important to be think a little bit outside of the box. I think a lot of folks are kind of focusing on, I want to work in security, but I want to work for like a FANG company, right? I want to go work for Microsoft or Google or Apple or, Amazon. And the fact of the matter is that there's so many great companies, out here, whether in the financial sector, healthcare sector, that need folks as well. And that are also offering internships, right? Even if the company is not popular, so what? It doesn't matter. You don't need popular to gain experience, right? And so your focus or your focal point should be on gaining as much experience as possible. And to Ben's point, understanding if this is something you even want to do, right? Because what I realize is that a lot of times, because this is a very popular industry and obviously it is lucrative or can be, lucrative, it doesn't mean that everyone is going to love it. So it's really important before you invest a lot of time and energy and money, to really understand if you even want to do this, right? Because some days I don't want to do it. So just, it's important to just be real and not, I like to say that I don't want to sugarcoat and just show all the beauty. There are really difficult times, even when an incident is happening, even just getting a job, even keeping a job. There's so many different things. So I don't want to put a negative spin on it, but I'm just saying that it's really something that I think talking to other folks and kind of networking and having these relationships will give you more of a perspective.
I am part of the same club, Christina. Sometimes I will come home at the end of the day and I just want to unplug everything from the internet and maybe crawl under my comforter and
Go
and
back
just
to cash.
go. Exactly,
mail.
exactly.
Yeah.
Great answer. Thank you for that. Renee, I'm going to actually skip down to Katrina, who I think has a great question for you around interview suggestions. She is another one of our attendees who is switching careers. She's currently in education. That's a great place to start, by the way, with minimal experience. I think, Katrina, maybe you're saying minimal cyber experience. I'm not, if you mean minimal educational experience, let us know. Anything to specifically look into to make myself relevant? She has an upcoming interview for a information security analyst position, if that's useful.
I mean, that's fantastic. I'm looking at the chat right now. And Katrina, I would just say lean into the experience that you have. I think a lot of times people tend to, for lack of, if you ever heard the expression, throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like they think that the education experience, everything that you've done in your career does not align in some way into security, and it most likely does. So if someone, and just a tip for everyone, if you have an interview, that means that a leader saw something in your resume and wants to speak with you because they feel like you could be a fit. Leaders don't just interview people for the sake of interviewing. And I think sometimes people don't realize that something in that resume said, oh, they want to hopefully hire you. So you want to lean into the things that you have in your resume that you believe either resonated with that person, maybe the education. I don't know if it could be you said it's a security analyst role, could be, a number of different things. But that leader is seeing something in your resume that interests him or her, that you've already done. So, definitely communication skill is key. That's one of the areas, again, everyone thinks about the technology or the technical aspect. However, what we hear all the time on our podcast, when leaders come, they talk about, someone who's able to effectively communicate. So, coming from that education space, I can imagine that that's probably very high in terms of your expertise. And just communicating in the interview is going to be big. Maybe potentially if part of this role has anything to do with security awareness or, some kind of connecting with other people versus the heavy on technology part, you just want to try not to be nervous. I hate to say don't be nervous, because in an interview you're going to be nervous, but think about your strengths and think about and provide. Don't discount your current experience. Like, don't say, oh, I'm just a teacher. Oh, I'm just an educator. In education, I had to do this, which I believe would align to this in your role. So that's where you want to try to take the experience that you have to translate it over to whatever that role is.
Great advice. And just for everybody's benefit, when Renee's talking about security awareness, that typically is a job or a group that provides training internally to other employees inside of an organization. SANS actually has a security awareness summit, believe it or not, that may be available virtually. Again, it's certainly available in person. I've attended probably 3 or 4 of the past years. It's a fantastic place, not just to learn about security awareness, but it's also a great place to network. If you're trying to get into the industry, this might not be the only SANS summit that you'd like to attend. So thank you for that, Renee. That's fantastic. Jax, I'm looking at another question from Boris, who's asking, at which area in cybersecurity can I play out my soft skill strengths? Renee just kind of talked about the importance of soft skills while also having the ability to get hands-on experience to develop my hard skills. Maybe this is an opportunity, Jax, to kind of underline the fact that it's not 100% technology. You think things like written skills are very important. Things like the ability to present or communicate are important. Do you have any thoughts maybe for Boris on those points?
Yeah, this is such a great question. I think that we forget, like you said, we forget about the soft skills. And I think that when somebody can have the technical and the soft skills, that's a powerhouse, because a lot of times we'll sometimes see one or the others. And if you're coming in and wanting to be able to leverage your soft skills, first thing I would ask you is, what skills do you have right now? Is that project management? Are you a really good communicator? Like, just those two questions alone, if you said I'm a really good communicator, I'm really good with project management, I might look at getting into something that you could leverage for business development for cybersecurity, maybe a cybersecurity administrator position. Renee actually covered this, getting into doing cybersecurity awareness training. That's another area where you could work on your skills, connect with other departments, help, because you're helping the entire organization with their cyber resilience by training their employees on cybersecurity. So there's so much you can do. What I would encourage is CyberSN. Deidre Diamond does a really great job in breaking down the taxonomy of different career positions. I'll actually throw it into the Slack chat. You can go through and you can look through some of these, and you can identify some of the career fields that are not super technical but require a higher level of EQ, emotional intelligence, those soft skills to be successful in them. So I'll drop that in the chat. I think that'll definitely help, but that's a great question.
Fantastic. Let me, Christina, I'm going to swing it back over to you. You've already answered Joshua's query, but I'm going to ask you maybe to elaborate. Joshua asked, how do we tailor our resumes to get past the algorithms and get to the interview stage?
So this is probably a really great question for Renee, since she's like the, cybersecurity recruiter ninja person title, right? So I trust that she has a way better answer, but my response was that relationships, right? I think a lot of hiring, or at least what I'm seeing, is that a lot of hiring is happening in back channels or through back channels, which, we can argue whether that's a good or bad thing. From like an equality perspective, likely not. However, this is what we're dealing with today. And the past maybe 3 jobs that I've gotten have been through back channels, right? So it's been because of my relationships with folks in the industry. They've reached out to me about opportunities that, were just posted or maybe about to be posted, which gave me a little bit of a leg up, right? So it kind of avoided me having to go through the ATS systems, right? It's more like the hiring manager gets my resume directly, and then if we proceed, then we do all that other stuff, right? Like uploading, but they already have it, and I'm already in the interviewing phase. So I think that's an important point to call out, that a lot of hiring is done through back channels, but I would love to hear Renee's response to that.
You actually said pretty much what I was going to say in terms of the networking. It's the truth. Christina, you're in it, so you get it. And you're absolutely right. There's so much that happens outside of applications. And you really want to be in the network. And be that person who is available for you. You want to be in the back channels. I mean, it's to Christina's point, it's the way almost everybody is getting candidates. It's the first, if you think about it from the perspective, I always say this when it comes to recruiting, if you think about it from the perspective of the folks who right? If you're looking for anything, you look to your friends first. You ask your friends, do you know anybody who knows how to make great pancakes, whatever. So that's what leaders do. Do you know someone who is good in this? I'm looking for interns. Do you know anybody? So the goal is getting in those back channels. And some of the people who I've seen break into the industry recently have done a phenomenal job of that. They've weaponized social media. They've jumped into Twitter, LinkedIn, and they've become, even as a person who has limited or zero experience, gotten into the community and been a person who can, gets into the back channels. So that when Christina or I say, hey, I have 2 internship opportunities, and Christina's like, oh, I know somebody that, check this person out on LinkedIn, or this person is trying to break in, or what have you. So Christina, you had the right answer all along.
Yeah, I also want
to add.
I just want to add to that. Like, I think a lot of people, one thing that we don't talk about is that there's a lot of competition, right? So, while I would love to hire every entry-level person on the planet, there are so many entry-level folks. And so you are competing against so many people. So when I say think outside of the box, what I mean by that is leverage the skills you already have to do something a little bit different. So an example, you can look into different security companies or different software vendors that are hiring like advisors or customer support engineers or sales professionals, right? So that you get you get into the company, you get into the ecosystem, and you start meeting people, right? Because of the title, because of your existing role. So don't feel bad if you have to take an alternative route to get to where you want to get to. I've given this advice so many times, and the folks that, do end up taking it, end up where they want to be, right? So even if you start as a cybersecurity sales professional or a marketing professional or something, like leveraging your existing skill set, you could end up working on the cloud security side or shifting into pen testing. It's much easier to pivot once you're in than to get in. So, why look for a red door when there are blue, green, yellow doors? Like, go into a door, right? Like, it doesn't matter what the color is. Once you're inside, you're in the building, right? So you have to kind of strategize that way. And also, if you kind of show that skill set, it's going to also be super impressive, right, to a hiring manager, I think.
Love it. Love it. Maybe we can springboard briefly. Jax, I'll swing this back over to you off of that comment. If I were to give you 4 ingredients, which of these 4 ingredients is the most important to keep in mind at the start of your cybersecurity career? This is an unfair question because I'm going to try and hold you to just one of the 4. So work history, technical certifications, your personal brand, and maybe define that if that's your answer. And 4th, your personal network. Work history, technical certs, your personal brand, or your personal network. What do you think the one most critical ingredient is for someone who is starting out in their cybersecurity career today?
Yeah, so I'm a super analyst, over here, Ben. So I'm thinking, well, he just said starting out. So if they have a brand, it's likely not a cybersecurity brand. It's probably some other brand. So then that leads me to network. And the reason that, and I wouldn't even, the other 2 are not as relevant to me because network is your net worth. And what I mean by that is who can really make profound impacts on where you're going to go within your career, especially within this space. And Renee can talk on this, there's a hidden job market. And the only way to find that hidden job market is through your networks and through your contacts. And then through that network and your contacts, you build a brand, and all those other things, I believe, will flourish through a healthy network. So that's my answer.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer. Christina.
I just want to add to that. I 100% agree, Jax, but I think that for a lot of people that may be more introverted, that's like networking is a little bit difficult. So I just want to encourage folks to, again, be creative, right? Like, if it's super hard for you to network in person, really leverage social media. Like, social media could be, as Renee mentioned it earlier, like you could weaponize in a good way, and use social media to your advantage, right? And that could look like, I'm very big on examples because if not, it just goes like, that could look like you talking about your journey, right? writing, short posts about, I'm looking for this, or this is what I learned today. I read this book. It's, whatever, just kind of sharing your experience. I think that goes a super long way. There are so many folks that are going through the same thing. And I think people will just kind of swarm to you in a good way, right? Like they'll just be interested. They'll see your tenacity. They'll see the discipline, and they may reach out to you, right? And that's a good opportunity to get yourself out there slowly until you start feeling a little bit more comfortable, because it is scary. It is overwhelming. And, I know that folks like Jax, I definitely agree. Your network is your net worth. But a lot of times you will find that you feel super lonely and you feel like, I have this huge network, but no one is helping me, right? You cannot throw all of your eggs in one basket. You cannot expect your network to do the work for you. You still have to do the work, even if your network is beautiful, right? You still have to do the work. You still have to take initiative. You still have to read books. You still have to be curious. You still have to go out there, go to conferences, apply to scholarships. SANS has so many amazing programs. Attend these summits, talk to other people, blog about your journey, even if it's one blog a week or one blog every 2 weeks. Get yourself out there, because once people start knowing who you are and what you bring to the table and your interests, the network will it will just kind of evolve. You will attract folks that are hiring or that are going through the same journey, right? Folks like us. So that's another way. Again, you have to be super creative, because competition is fierce. A lot of people are doing a lot of things to get noticed. I'm not saying to mirror those frameworks. I'm saying leverage those frameworks to your advantage, so that your personality and who you are can shine. Because that's one thing that really, it's a lot of folks give very great advice. I think we're giving amazing advice, but what I'm noticing is that it's the same advice and folks are still having a lot of issues. So I feel like we all need to get super aggressive with listen, you cannot do what everybody else is doing, right? Because then you're just going to end up with, you're not going to end up with their results. You may end up with some other weird results. So just be a little bit creative. Yeah.
Renee, I'm gonna hand this off to you in our final 90 seconds. I'm gonna presume maybe the networking angle is the most important, but I don't want to put words in your mouth.
You're right. The networking is, and I concur. I absolutely agree with Jax and Christina. And I would like to, and I love Christina's point in terms of, we're saying it and people are doing, or just they're not doing it, or they're nervous about it in all types of ways. And of course, a lot of us are introverts, and a lot of people in the industry are. And so I'll give you an example hopefully I could do this in 90 seconds. We had a person on our podcast. His name is Chelan Sampson. I told him I was going to use him, and I have used his example over and over again. He was somebody who was brand new. He he was studying for a cert. He had no experience. He wanted to get people together to get together with him to study for this cert. He couldn't find whatever it was that he was looking. I can't remember the specific certification, but anyway, he built his own group. And so this thing became, it turned into a small group, and then eventually turned into, I think, 15,000 people or so in a group on Facebook. And because he became the king of that 15,000 person castle, people started coming to him. So it wasn't about networking up, because people tend to network up all the time. It was networking across. He was working with his peers. They started obviously communicating, and he weaponized LinkedIn. He used Facebook. He used the places where he was to gain entry into opportunities. So of course, when you're the person who has 15,000 people in your group, as Christina said, people start coming and looking for you. So whatever that is in whatever space, and I use his example because he is an introvert. He's not somebody that's out there hey, just doing a whole lot on LinkedIn. He took where he was and he built this little world, and he truly weaponized social media. So to that point, the networking, when we talk about it and we say it, it's jumping into, if you're following Christina, she makes a great comment, and you're on LinkedIn and you want to make a comment after her and say, oh, my thought is this. that is beginning to network. And then other people will chime in, oh, that's interesting, et cetera, et cetera. So I know we're at time. So
well, we are
I'll
at
stop.
time, but we've got a reprieve. We actually got a note, and Sands has encouraged us maybe to go on for a few more minutes. So we're going to take advantage of that, but it's an easy exit for all three of you guys. I'm just going to close out by asking you if you have a closing thought that you wanted to share. We've covered a lot of bases today. Some of it has been repetitive, which is fine. It's probably been repetitive with some of the other panels. But if I could ask you maybe each to take, let's call it 30, 45 seconds. Any closing thoughts that you have? Jax, maybe we can start with you.
Absolutely. And thank you again for hosting this. Yeah, and I actually posted it in Slack a little bit about myself, and I'd like to just let everybody know, like, you can do this. For myself, I'm an introvert, and there would be times where this would terrify me. I would have panic attacks. I couldn't even hold my talking notes in my hand because I would shake so hard. And so breaking into this industry, meeting new people, doing all of the things to place me where I'm at today, to be afforded this amazing honor to be on this panel, it takes time. And so if you're listening to this and you're transitioning or you're going through your own set of struggles, what helped me to digest that transition was looking at cybersecurity as learning a new language and realizing it's just going to take time, and that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that it might take 6 months, it might take you a year to really be able to start building that foundation. But I promise you it will happen. You just have to stay after it, and you have to stay focused. And then the other thing is build your community, find your tribe. This is an amazing community, but with any community, there are some bad apples. So don't let those bad apples spoil your experience. Reach out to any individual that's on this panel. I can promise you, we will help you. We would love to network with you, but just keep trying. And we're happy that you're here. So that's all I've got. Thank you again, Ben.
That's awesome, Jack. And that is all truth. Thank you for that. Christina, any closing thoughts from your perspective?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say +1 to everything Jack said. I mean, it does take time. It takes discipline. Don't give up. It's super challenging. It can be super challenging. You may want to give up. Don't do it, because we need you. We need as many people as possible right now. We need you to, help us fight the good fight. And so don't be afraid to reach out to folks. Give people a little bit of time. If we don't reply right away, sometimes it gets a little hectic. But yeah, we're super happy to help. And yeah, and I think this was a great panel. Thanks again, Ben, and thanks to Sands for setting this up. But
you bet.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And Renee, any closing thoughts?
Double down on what Jax and Christina said. This is such an awesome panel. But again, don't give up. Please don't give up. We need people in the industry. Lean to your strength. If you're a great writer, write. If you're a great communicator, do a presentation. If you're great with pictures and visuals and presentations, do that. So, and I take that from this Gary V, if anyone's ever seen or heard of him, marketing guy. He always says, he's big into social media, big into, Twitter, whatever, but focus on your strength. I like to talk. I'll do these all day long, but to get me to write an article, forget it. So I don't even know how I got through the books, because I talked and then transcribed. So, if somebody said, Renee, you have to write an article, that's gonna, it's gonna be a struggle. But to jump on one of these and kind of share advice, easy for me. So lean to whatever is easy for you, and double down on your strengths.
Awesome.
Really
awesome.
Focus on your strengths.
Great, strong close, Renee. Thank you for that. Just a quick reminder to everybody, there is an evaluation form. Jennifer from Sands just dropped that into the hallway. We would love to get your feedback, either in the channel or more preferably through that eval form, so that if we want to come back in the future, maybe we'll be invited back. I will also mention that inside the hallway, all three of the books that each of these authors, that the three authors together have done, there are links to those books. Again, thanks to Sands for tracking along with the conversation there. With that, Christina, Renee, Jax, thank you so much. Sands, thank you. And for everybody in the audience, this was a great panel, certainly because of the three subject matter experts we have, but it was a great panel because we got great questions from everybody. Sometimes that doesn't happen. So thank you. This is the first day. Hopefully you're going to be here again tomorrow for day 2. And I hope it's a good use of your time.